Hi, I'm Alex Moran, and today I'm going to show you how to calibrate and use your custom-made past life pendulum portal. So this is a portal that I just made for one of our amazing clients. And as you can see that each one is custom made. They're different colors, different connections, different vibrations, but what all of them have in common is that each one is a portal into that person's Akashic records. So the moment that they open it and touch it and come into contact with it, their Akashic records opens, and whatever information that is channeled or asked or divined about is now available as a direct connection into the Akashic records. So this is really important for a couple different reasons. One, when we work with any kind of divination, if we're not setting strong sacred space, how do we know who we are opening up to? How do we know that we are, talking to the Archangel Michael and not some demon impersonating Archangel Michael? Because that happens. If you've ever played with the Ouija board when you were little or done any other kind of divination stuff, you might have experience of knowing how divination can go wrong, which is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people kind of are afraid of divination. They're afraid of, what if I talk to somebody I don't want to, or I open a door I don't want to? Well, what's so nice about these portals is it is impossible to open any door that you don't want to, because the only door that opens in this is the door to your own Akashic records. So unless you're afraid of yourself, which sometimes some people are, there isn't anything to be afraid of. There's no darkness, there's no entities, there's no foreign energy. This is your complete connection, which is why I love doing these, because I think it's so important that when we learn about our past lives, when we learn about our guides, who we used to be, what our missions used to be, it's so important for us to be talking to ourselves and not to somebody trying to convince us that we're one way or the other. So that is why this portal is truly such an amazing gift. So you get it, you open it up. Now what do you do with it? Well, if you received the package, you would have gotten a pendulum. And if you are very unfamiliar with working with a pendulum, as part of your package, you get Pendulum 101, which is a very basic course, about, I think, an hour long, that walks you through how to calibrate your pendulum to your body and to develop a relationship with your pendulum so that you can get quick, efficient, and strong answers. One of the things that people struggle with when they start working with pendulums is maybe they're not getting a strong answer one way or the other, and a lot of doubt creeps in. So that's why I highly suggest, before you start to calibrate yourself to your portal and use your portal, please watch Pendulum 101 so that you can actually calibrate yourself to the pendulum, and then the pendulum can calibrate to the portal, and everything is very easy, and you'll get strong yes or no answers, which makes validation so much easier with dealing with it. So let's assume you've already watched Pendulum 101, you're already feeling really good about your brand new pendulum. Important to note, please use this pendulum when working with this portal, because when I was creating this and setting the intentions for it, I had this pendulum in close proximity, and so this pendulum already knows your portal pretty well. If you were to go and use one of your other pendulums or whatnot, it's kind of like inviting a friend to a party that doesn't know anybody. It might take a little bit for that person to warm up to, this new group of people. It's kind of the same with pendulums. It's when they are working with something new, it can take a little bit, and unless you're pretty, skilled at working with pendulums, it might be a little bit difficult and off-putting. So just work with this one when you work with your pendulum. Okay, so how does this portal work? Well, you can see it looks very similar to kind of a Ouija board, where you have the alphabet going around the outside edges, you have a yes and a no. You have numbers up top. You have a rephrase. And you also have a male and female symbol on the sides. So these, whenever you work with pendulums, you're always going to be asking yes or no questions, or questions that have an answer on this board. So if you're asking about, is this a cow? That's going to be a yes or a no. Or is it female or male? You have these here. And if you want to find your names and whatnot. The other thing that's really cool to note is on this inner ring, you will have at the top, it says guide, demon, ancestor, creature, and ET. And then in the lower part, it says 3D, past, present, future, parallel, and 5D. So because this is a past life portal, this is going into your Akashic records to discover your past lives, we're going to start with the very basics, okay? So you're going to have your board. I'll just hold it up so that you can see it, with your calibrated pendulum. And to orient your pendulum to it, I want you to start off by saying, show me a yes. And then watch your pendulum move to wherever the yes is on the board. And this is a process of getting to know your pendulum. So you might start to notice that when it's a yes, it goes very strong left to right. And when it's a no, it loops around, for example. Because the yes and the no are placed right across from each other, if you get a strong yes or no left and right, when you ask for a no, you're going to ask your pendulum to show you something different. So for example, okay, show me a yes. So you can see that I'm getting a very strong back and forth for the yes. And I'm going to ask my pendulum, show me something different for a no. And I'm watching, see how it's turning for the no. So now I can do this a couple times to ensure that the yes is indeed back and forth and the no is indeed circular. And when you do this, you're going to notice that the pendulum tends to fly itself towards the answer. So I want you to not notice the full movement, but where the direction of most of the movement comes. So when I asked for no, I noticed my pendulum kind of flung itself forward towards that no, as if it was lassoing around the no. And then when it was going to yes, it was very sharp on the yes. So this is a process of getting to know your personality of your pendulum and your portal, and you'll start to have these inner tingles that happen before you even ask the question, before the pendulum even starts to swing. And the pendulum is really just kind of a validation tool for you, so that you can get more validating and concrete answers. So I would like you to go about and do that for every single answer on here, for the yes, for the no, for the rephrase, and for the male and female, okay? And I'd like you to write down in your journal, in your book of shadows, what your communication is on this day with your portal and with your pendulum. And as you start to get to know, we're going to go through actually looking at a past life, okay? So when you're ready, let's assume you've done all of the yeses, all of the nos, all of the rephrases, the feminine and male lifetimes, right? So you have a very strong sense of how your pendulum moves for those different answers. Let's go ahead and start with asking our first question. Okay, so go ahead, get your pendulum out, get your board out, and with your elbow on the table and your pendulum properly positioned right in the center of your board, I'd like you to ask, do I have permission to look at a past life now? And then allow the pendulum to start to swing. And if you get a yes, awesome. If you get a no, then that's okay. You can ask, is there something I need to do first before I can start to explore a past life? And if you get a no for that answer, then you can just put away your pendulum, and today's not the day to look at stuff. Today's the day to be more forward thinking instead of past thinking. If you get a yes for that, then you can use your alphabet or any of the things on here to ask questions as to what it is that you need to do. Maybe you need to sit and meditate first. Maybe you do need to create some sacred space. Maybe, you need to play some music or take a bath and cleanse yourself or do something different to really create a holy experience. Because when we go into our past lives, it is a deep remembering that starts to unlock our cellular memory, and it starts to help us understand who we are in a very deeper and more spiritual way. So sometimes we're not ready for that, and sometimes we need to prepare better for that. So whatever happens, it's okay. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me, but trust yourself and go with what needs to show up for you. So then if you get a yes that you can start looking at past lives, then you're going to ask the next question, which is, was I male or female? Now, you notice on this board, I don't have any kind of gender fluidity. And that's because gender fluidity is very typically a construct, a social construct that is coming into our consciousness in this lifetime. It is not something that we really ever dealt with. Even if we had been gender fluid in previous lifetimes, it wasn't a main storyline in our space. We were dealing with a lot of other things like fear and death and survival and whatnot. So I've kept it very simple into male and female. This helps us understand the storylines that we were learning, the themes that we were learning based on the gender that we were identified with, or society identified with, made us identify with in that lifetime. So it by no means is meant to be exclusive or whatnot. It's actually meant to be more clear so that we can have stronger sense of our stories. So we have stronger sense of who we used to be. So find out if you were male or female in that lifetime, and go ahead and write that down in your journal. And then the next question you're going to ask was this lifetime in 3D, in 5D, and was it a past, present, future, or parallel lifetime? This is super important because we want to know where our consciousness is. When we are in 3D and in the past, we are in a realm of history. And so sometimes it's a little bit easier for us to understand who we were through the context of the history that we know today. If we are looking at parallel lifetimes, things that don't make sense and don't add up time-wise, or that are a little bit quirky, or if we have some superpowers or what, make a little bit more sense when we understand that it's a parallel lifetime that we're talking about. It's a different dimension. It's a dimension that maybe, certain physics do exist, certain laws of physics do exist that don't exist here, and certain, capabilities exist that don't exist here. It's also important to look at if this is a future lifetime. A lot of times in our Akashic records, our future lifetimes want to come through and communicate to us. Sometimes they're disastrous future lifetimes and they want to come through to warn us. Sometimes they're blessing future lifetimes that want to bring us hope and determination and some validation that we're on the right path. So understanding where in history our life that we're looking at is the next step. And then finally, we want to find out what embodiment we had. We don't have to just look at human lifetimes, okay? You can ask if this is a human lifetime, that's fine. But we can also take a look at lifetimes when we were guides, whether it was a physical guide on Earth a spiritual guide, an animal guide, any kind of guide for other people. We can also look at lifetimes when we were demons. This is kind of a taboo subject because we like to tend to think of humans as separate and demons are separate and angels are separate and none of them touch. But the truth is we are all highly evolved souls and we've played in all of the realms, which means we've dabbled in the demonic realms, in the realms of hell, the realms of negativity, of the dark grid, of all of that. And the lifetimes when we were demons can bring us so much information about sovereignty, because demons tend to have a lot of sovereignty, and that is something we struggle with as humans. So bringing forward the lifetimes when we had that sovereignty can be really helpful, and then we can leave the demonic stuff at the door. We don't need to bring that through. But all of our lifetimes are here to teach us and help us remember certain things, even the demonic lifetimes. So those are really fun ones to explore. We can look and see if we are an ancestor of ourselves, our current incarnation. That is really interesting and really fun because so many ties when it comes to the DNA, unlocking of gifts, of healing, of family stories, of generational ideas can be healed when we take a look at those ancestor lifetimes. Creature can be a magical creature. It can be a negative creature. It can be a unicorn, a mermaid, any of those lifetimes where we had a lot of magic incarnate in our physical bodies are our creature lifetimes. And I've had a couple courses around magical creatures. So if you're interested, join the sisterhood and you'll learn more about that. And then also finally, was this a lifetime where I was extraterrestrial, where I was non-human, but still sentient and conscious and living in a civilization? So extraterrestrial lifetimes could be Lemurian, Atlantean, Syrian, any of the extraterrestrials that we are aware of, and even extraterrestrials that we aren't aware of in a completely different universe, galaxy, whatever. When you start to go through and figure out this stuff, you can use the alphabet to figure out your name, the place that you lived. If you find out that you're an ET, but you want to learn what star system you were coming from, you can use the name. If you were a guide, you can figure that out. And you can also ask about your own guides. Who was your guide in that lifetime? Are they still your guide in this lifetime? Is there some information that they can bring forward? So as you start to unfold what your past lifetime was and you start to write it down, you're going to get more questions and you'll keep asking. And eventually you'll get to the point where you'll feel like, okay, I understand what this lifetime is about. And you want to get to the point where you are ready to ask what can be brought through as a gift and what needs to stay on that side of the timeline because it's causing conflict or discord in my life now. So we want to make sure that we keep what is beneficial to us and we close the door on what isn't. Because one of the things that past lifetimes bring us and show us where we have unhealed bleed through, where that past life, the pain, the trauma, the story that showed up in that past lifetime is still playing out in this lifetime, even if it's a completely different dimension. So we want to be able to heal ourselves by ending that bleed through so we can ask what it is, and then we can ask what we can do to end it. And a lot of times just acknowledging and working with this pendulum is enough to end it. It's enough to close those doors. Other times we need psychic healing. We need a session with somebody like me to help close those contracts, end that karma and really close the door on that piece of who we used to be. But that's it, you guys. That's basically the entire board. Please treat this like the sacred stargate that it is. It is a portal. It should be placed on your altar or in a sacred place in your home. It should be kept clean and dust free. What's nice is that you'll notice that there's a bunch of little imperfections on the surface of this resin, and that's because underneath there's this selenite dust that is coating the top of it. And selenite is a self-cleansing crystal, so it is always cleaning and clearing and creating a force field of integrity around your portal. So when you're done with it, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to charge it. You don't have to leave it out in the moon. You don't have to put crystals on it. You don't have to do anything. You can just leave it and let the selenite self-cleanse this portal so that you always have access to it. And then, of course, you can place your pendulum right in the middle and just leave it in a nice space. This portal loves sunlight, so you can put it in a nice window and just treat it like it's a member of your healing staff, your healing family, your healing guides. And I promise you, you will go far and you will learn a lot about who you are, who you have been, who you will be, and who you could be working with this portal. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I would love to answer them. And otherwise, enjoy your past life pendulum portal.